My name is Bethany Douglas, and my title here at the Kahnawake Education Center is Post-Secondary Distance Counselor.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. I don't want to take up too much of your time today. I'm sure you're very busy, but do you mind? Well, the story, it's about Bill 96 and the effects it's going to have on Kahnawake, especially the education system. That's an angle I'm really interested in, and of course, that's kind of the big topic at the moment. Can you share your thoughts on this newly passed bill?
So it's very worrying, particularly because we are an Anglophone community, and a lot of our schools, all of our students, I should say, their first languages are English and Kanien'kehá, which is Mohawk. So French is a second or third language for the majority of our students. So even as it stands now, going to Cégep and having to do the two pre-existing French courses, that's a struggle. So I like having to add three more now as a result of Law 96 is it's a bit scary for our students. And I fear that it will encourage a lot of students to either go out of province for post-secondary, so like to an Ontario college, or just not pursue post-secondary studies at all. Yeah, so that's the major worry.
Yeah, the post-secondary aspect, it's a huge fear. I mean, I guess, yeah. Do you feel like this, one of the comments it made has been that this goes against reconciliation efforts? I mean, it's if it is directly affecting post-secondary education, that is a fear. What's your thought on this kind of take?
So I guess in my opinion, it does go against like the efforts at reconciliation, and a lot of schools now are trying. A lot of post-secondary schools now are trying to make the institutions more friendly, more user-friendly, more welcoming to Indigenous students. Um, I can't say that it's going to go very well at Cégep. Putting this barrier in place for not only Indigenous students but also Anglophone students who also struggle with French. So yeah, definitely puts a damper on the efforts at decolonizing the curriculum and reconciliation efforts. Our students don't often see themselves reflected in post-secondary curriculum institutions, things like that. So I feel like it just puts up yet another barrier to them to pursue um, their Cégep careers, I guess you could say.
Absolutely. And have you heard any concerns from the students so far? What are they saying?
Yeah, so part of my role is to work directly with high school students, so graduating this year in grade 11. So although the law won't come into effect until fall 2024, the graduates from this year are already worried because they know they'll probably still be in Cégep when it comes into effect. And the younger students, so grade 9 and 10, who are coming up through high school and they already have this at the back of their mind, oh, when I graduate and I go to Cégep, I'm gonna have to do all these French classes. Um, I think it puts the pressure on them when they're already in high school too, like the grade 9, grade 10, because now they have to try, like, of course every student should try, but now they have to try extra hard to pass French in high school to then get a good mark to then be admitted to Cégep. Like, it's a domino effect, right? So yeah, definitely. And because it doesn't only affect academics, they're hearing from their parents and people around them, the rest of the community, about the other impacts that Bill 96 will have in areas such as like the legal, judicial area, healthcare services, things like that. So they're pretty worried, and I can't say I blame them.
Of course. Do you mind expanding on some of these other concerns that community members have had that you've heard of, if you feel comfortable? Thanks.
Yeah, sure. So I know, like within I guess the health and social services aspect. A lot of our services, actually all of our services here in the community are English, but we do have to send, for example, youth protection has to, and other areas have to go to the courts outside, which will be in French, which will, you'll have to, I believe they said you'll have to pay to get an English translation of court documents in the future. People who are having to get medical treatments like outside of the community, so chemo, radiation, things like that, they'll be affected when they go off reserve for those treatments. Yeah, so those are the two main ones that I'm hearing from people around me.
Yeah, and I also understand that the community and the council had decided to pause all communications with the Quebec government. Have you kind of noticed any effects from this at the moment? What do you think might come from this?
That I can't really speak to. I'm not super familiar with what's going on there. I do know that they have halted communications with Quebec and entering into certain negotiations for certain things, but I don't know enough about it to speak on it, unfortunately.
No, thank you so much for your honesty. I only have a few more questions here. Thank you for your openness to speak with me. I'm curious a little bit about the residential school aspect, the idea that there's another language being brought forward, and kind of the history of the fact that, English is a predominant language. Do you have any kind of thoughts that resonate with you about this topic?
In terms of Bill 96, like with the...
Yeah, kind of. It's the legacy behind it, the fact that English was forced on to the Mohawk people, and now there's another language aspect coming into play here. I guess it kind of ties better into the reconciliation efforts idea, but kind of, do you have any, has there been kind of any discussion on kind of the lasting impact there, or, sorry, the question seems a little disjointed, but...
Yeah, so in various community meetings...
do you mind expanding on that idea of the lack of choice a little bit?
Yeah, so so as we know, residential schools were forced upon not only Mohawk people, but several other Indigenous nations in the U.S. and Canada. And the whole intention was to destroy who we were as a people, to take away the language and culture, which is the center point of what makes us who we are. So we've already had to adapt over the course of hundreds of years, of course. But we are where we are now because of that imposition of English. We have very few first language speakers of Kanien'kehá left. There are various language revitalization efforts in the community, and I think the fear with imposing another colonial language on our students, not only our students but our whole community, right, will take away from the time that could have been devoted, the time and effort that could have been devoted to revitalizing our Kanien'kehá language. And so that's the fear, I guess. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, that's even better than I had thought about. So thank you. You do raise a really interesting topic as well. I've heard conflicting things, that there's the threat to the Kanien'kehá language, and then there's also the fact that, Mohawk culture is alive and well, and there's these really excellent efforts being put in place. It's not, Bill 96 will not halt these efforts. They're doing very well. There's two sides of this argument I've been hearing a little bit. Where kind of do you sit, or do you see both kind of aspects? The language is not a threat, or it is an added concern.
I think, yes, I do see both sides of the coin, but I do think that the priority in the community should be on revitalizing our Kanien'kehá language. Yes, there are several language and culture revitalization efforts, but I think, and this is only my opinion, but I think that a lot of people want that focus to remain only on Kanien'kehá. Do you know what I mean? Like, every minute, I guess, you devote to a different language, or English or French or whatever, like within the school day, let's say, there are always going to be people who say that could have been used for Kanien'kehá, which is a valid point. But I think, I don't know, I see both sides of the story, but at the same time, every year we lose a few elders who were first language speakers. We're never going to get that back. So, I don't know, it's hard to say.
Yeah, it's a major challenge. I'm gonna wrap up here a little bit. Thank you so much for everything. Do you have any kind of final thoughts about Bill 96, the effects on the community, or any general kind of closing remarks you have?
I'm not that I can think of right now. Of course, you always think of things after the fact. But my job is to assist our students in an academic pathway that they choose. So whether that's staying in Quebec and doing the Cégep, or whether that's going to Ontario, my job is to support them through that. If we have to hook them up with tutoring, or hook them up with, different language learning resources, if they really want to stay here and pass the French, then we'll do it. We'll adapt. But the fact of the matter is that, when something is being imposed on them, they're gonna back off, right? Or they're gonna not appreciate it, I guess you could say. That's where we're at, but we're gonna keep doing our jobs and supporting our students.
Sorry, from hearing you just now, it did inspire me. Your job, it's been put in a different position, I guess. You now have this added kind of challenge. Has this been a major thought for you going forward? How you're going to now incorporate this French language requirement into your students' lives?
We're definitely going to have to take a look at our funding, because we offer funding to Kanien'kehá students to go to post-secondary, so we may have to expand our policy to include other things that we don't normally cover, like tutoring, like I mentioned before. And if it also means, the creation of in-community study groups, or connection with language labs at the Cégep, that's something that we can definitely do. I know when I was in Cégep, that's what was available to me, and I studied languages, so I know the resources are there. It's just a matter of making them accessible to our students in the best way possible. So that's what we're gonna have to do moving forward, and of course continue to fight the bill in the ways that we can. But